Hi everyone, welcome to Smart City Institute Japan's webinar series called Global Perspectives on Smart Cities. I'm Nagumo, Executive Managing Director of Smart City Institute Japan, your host of this session. So today, tomorrow, and day after tomorrow, we are running a series focusing on various aspects of Estonia. We call it the Estonia Week. And today is the first day of the three, focusing on the introduction to national cybersecurity. And today we have two distinct speakers. Let me introduce the speakers. First, Mr. Nakano from Mitsubishi UFJ Research and Consulting.
Hi, Nakano. Hi, everyone. This is Nakano. Thank you for joining our program.
Thank you for joining me. Okay, second person, Ms. Maaten, Program Director of Cybersecurity and at E-Governance Academy from Estonia. So, hi.
Hello, nice to meet you.
Thank you for joining me. Right. So today's game plan is to have Mr. Nakano's presentation first for first 20 minutes or so. And it's going to be hybrid, presenting in Japanese. And the slides are in Japanese, basically, but the English version is shared on chat box. So everyone can take a look at any language, any of the two languages they want. And then we'll pass it over to Ep for presentation directly from Estonia. And after that, we'll have a discussion, including comments from the audiences. So audiences, I would encourage all of you to write messages, questions through the chat box. And when writing, please choose all from the pull-down menu. So any writing can be shared among all the members attending this session. All right, without further ado, let's move on to the presentation. First by Nakano-san. Over to you, Nakano-san.
Thank you, Taku. And hi, everyone. I'm Takashi Nakano. So unfortunately, my presentation goes in Japanese. I'm sorry for English non-Japanese speaker, but as Tak said, so you can download my English presentation material from the chat box of the Zoom. So let's move on. はい、改めまして、三菱 UFJ リサーチ&コンサルティングの中野と申します。今日はですね、サイバーセキュリティのグローバルランキングについて3つご紹介いたします。いずれも公開情報のみからの分析となりますけれども、これを通しましてですね、サイバーセキュリティの世界で今どのようなところが注目されているのか、そのサイバーセキュリティとして捉えている範囲というのはどんどん拡大しているというところをですね、皆さんと一緒に確認できましたらと思っております。世の中にはですね、今画面に出してますように、さまざまなグローバルランキングあります。順位そのものの不沈に一憂するものでは決してないと思うんですけれども、ある意味その客観的な視点をですね、我々に与えてくれる機会があるというふうに思っております。今日ご紹介する3つのインデックスなんですけれども、上から順にですね、最もよく参照されるベーシックなもの、それからですね、今年真ん中にありますのは、今年新しく、発表されたものなんですけれども、安全保障、サイバーセキュリティというよりはサイバーパワーといった方がいいかもしれませんけれども、そういったインデックス、そして最後にですね、今日のゲストのエストニア E-Governance Academy が開発提供しています、インデックス、これら3つについてですね、見ていきたいと思っております。ちなみにそれぞれ日本の順位というのはこのようになっております。ちょっとスライド小さくて恐縮なんですけれども、最初にまずインデックスに入る前にですね、足元のサイバーセキュリティの、事案の状況というところを簡単におさらいしたいと思います。画面はですね、よくサイバーセキュリティの事故、事案というのはその新聞などニュースを賑わしていますけれども、比較的その記憶に残っているかなと思われるものをピックアップして画面に出しております。当初はですね、2014年、17年、ソニーピクチャーズですとか、アメリカのエクイバックス社、こういったところはですね、データの漏洩ということで大変大騒ぎになったわけなんですけれども、今年に入ってからですね、皆さんご記憶ある方もいらっしゃるかと思いますけれども、例えばアメリカの東海岸の石油パイプラインオペレーションがですね、5日間停止してしまうという、大変大きな被害。あるいはアイルランドではですね、医療機関の IT システムの利用不能。 こういったですね、サイバー空間だけではなくてですね、リアルな我々の実生活、場合によってはその生命にもですね、直結するような事案というものが、サイバー攻撃というものが起きるようになってきています。これはその攻撃、もしくはその事案のですね、タイプで分類するとこのようになっているんですけれども、イエローでハイライトしてますように、足元ではですね、中でもそのマルウェアの感染、これによるシステムの停止ですとか、情報流出、またそれをテコにした脅迫といったものがですね、我々を脅かしているというような状況にあります。これをちょっとマトリックスにして整理してみました。横軸は動機ですね。自己満足でありますとか、経済的利益、あるいは、宗教でありますとか、国家の防衛。から縦軸は攻撃したいということで、下からですね、個人、それはグループになり、組織化され、国家になれという形でありますけれども、見て分かりますようにですね、左下のものがですね、もともとサイバーインシデントっていうのは10年、20年前、こういったものが中心だったんですけれども、だんだん右上の方のですね、営利目的ですとか、サイバー紛争、こういったところにですね、つながってきているというような状況にあります。それでは早速ですね、最初のインデックスなんですけれども、こちらの国際電気通信連合の、発表していますサイバーセキュリティインデックスになります。国際電気通信連合はご存知の方いると思いますけれども、国連の専門機関で、世界193の構成国が加盟している団体であります。でこちらの方ですけれども、過去4回発表しておりまして、2010年が最新のインデックスということになっております。こちらの方でですね、日本は第7位ということでランキングをされております。右の方にですね、国名並べておりますけれども、米国、英国をトップにですね、日本、インドまでと並んでおりますけれども、点数のところを見ていただくと分かりますようにですね、非常に僅差ということになっております。ある意味、そのサイバーセキュリティに対する対策という意味ではですね、各国、かなりレベル感としては準備が進んでいるという状況が見て取れます。また、アジアで見るとですね、日本より上位にありますのは、韓国、マレーシア、シンガポールということであります。この ITU の国際電気通信連合 ITU ですね、ITU の評価項目なんですけども、ここに表示してますように、法律や技術、組織、能力開発、それから協力連携、こういった分野、横断的にですね、全部で82項目の質問項目が並んでおります。質問項目としてはですね、後でご紹介する2つのインデックスに比べると、オーソドックスなサイバーセキュリティといいますか、そのサイバー攻撃があったときにですね、どういった対策を取るのかっていうところについて、割と国防とか安全保障、デジタルサービスの保障といったところではなくてですね、コンピューターのシステムの対象としてのところが中心になった質問構成となっている傾向にあります。で、過去4回公表されてます。2014年から2020年ということです。で、時系列で見てもですね、わかりますように、やっぱりその各国とも、日本もですね、レベルだんだんと上がってるんですけれども、各国もどんどんレベルが上がっているという状況でですね、日本の位置としては、あまり変わらないような状況になるということになります。ただ見るとですね、中にはその2014年の日本と同じ同点でありました韓国という、イギリスなんですけれども、足元2022年にはですね、ご覧いただくとですね、トップノッチに入ってきているようにですね、やっぱり国によって戦略スピードの違いが出ていると、こういった状況にあります。ちなみにこれが今表示してますのが日本のスコアです。法律、先ほど申し上げた法律技術等のですね、ごとに点数が公表されておりますが、技術といった面と、それから組織で若干の減点があるというような状況です。非常に残念なことなんですけども、このどういった部分でですね、減点がされているかというのはですね、ちょっと公表がされていないので、という状況にあります。こちらの方はですね、左上がちょっと小さくて恐縮なんですけども、エストニア、それから韓国、シンガポール、マレーシアというふうに表示をしております。 エストニアはですね、能力開発のところで若干の減点がある以外は満点と。それからアジア各国についてはですね、それぞれテクニカルと組織対応と、日本と同じですね、こちらの方で若干の減点がそれぞれあると、こういったような状況になっています。以上がグローバルサイバーセキュリティインデックスになりますけれども、まとめとしてはですね、日本は7位ということですけれども、サイバーセキュリティの対策そのものという意味ではですね、世界的にもトップクラスの水準というのは維持できているというような状況になるのかなということであります。では続きましてですね、2つ目であります。こちらのサイバーケーパビリティとナショナルパワーということでありまして、こちらはですね、国際問題戦略研究所 IISS という、これ英国にありますですね、安全保障を主に取り扱うシンクタンクになります。日本政府もですね、資金を拠出をして、ジャパンチェアということでですね、共同研究を実施しているというような先になります。ご覧のようにですね、まさに安全保障、国防、こういったところの観点からのインデックスとなっています。でこちらが今表示しているのは、今年の6月ですね、に発表された結果ということであります。ティア1、ティア2、ティア3、対象15カ国が選ばれておりまして、その中での分類ということになります。ティア1はアメリカ、米国、1国だけであります。ティア1の定義はですね、後でご紹介する7つのカテゴリーにおいて、すべてにおいて最強というような定義になっています。で、続いてティア2にですね、オーストラリアですとか、英国ですとか、あるいはイスラエル、ロシア、中国、こういった国が並んでいます。で残念ながら日本については、ティア3ということになります。ティア3の定義は、カテゴリーの中では強いものもあるけれども、著しく弱点もあるというような定義になっています。日本の他にはですね、インド、インドネシア、イラン、それから北朝鮮、マレーシア、ベトナム、こういった国が並んでいます。ちなみに15カ国はですね、これはファイブアイズとその親密な国、プラス、いわゆるIT としては途上国となるような国といったことで15カ国を選んでいるそうであります。今表示してますのは、これが評価項目ということで、左側に7つのテーマが並んでますけれども、どれを見てもですね、まさにその安全保障の世界からの観点ということになります。で先ほどの ITU で見ましたようなですね、サイバーセキュリティの評価という意味ではですね、この上から5番目ですね、サイバーセキュリティとレジリエンス、ここの1項目のような感じになっています。で、いわゆる定量評価ではなく定性評価になっていますので、コメント情報だけは公開されているんですけれども、日本についてはですね、いくつかコメントありまして、例えばサイバー攻撃等に関するですね、情報共有について民間の間の情報共有が緩やかであると。あるいはですね、憲法9条21条、こういった単位の制約もある中でですね、攻撃的なサイバー能力を持つことができないとか、サイバーインテリジェンスに遅れがあるとか、そういったような指摘がありますので、おそらくこれらはですね、ティア3に位置づけられている理由ということかと思います。民間部門による情報共有が緩やかっていうところなんですけども、補足するとですね、サイバーセキュリティ、サイバー攻撃っていうのは、ある企業に対し、企業もしくは機関に行われた場合にですね、それにとどまることがなく、どんどん他の企業、機関にもですね、広げていく傾向にありますので、そういう意味では攻撃された、あるいはそれを防いだ、防げなかった、そういった情報についてはですね、赤裸々に情報を共有することがですね、全体としてはプラスになるんですけども、なかなかそこはいろんな事情があってですね、公表されないケースもあるというところが、これは各企業に任されている、そういった点についてですね、若干弱点とされているということであります。こちらのレポートなんですけれども、今表示してますのは、その内閣サイバーセキュリティセンターのサイバーセキュリティ戦略本部、これの議事録からの抜粋でありますけれども、各委員からもこれに対する言及が出ているというような状況にあります。場合によってはですね、国全体での対策をしっかりと考えていく、 法的な改正もですね、視野に入れるべきだといったような意見も出ているようであります。まとめになりますけれども、残念ながら、安全保障を中心に見た場合は、日本はそのティア3に位置すると。ただ、レポートにはですね、ティア2に一番近いのは日本だろうというふうには書かれていますし、一方で中国ですね、これはティア1のアメリカに近くてですね、近いうちにアメリカと中国はトップ2になるんではないかというようなことが言われています。強み、弱みは先ほど申し上げた通りということかと思います。最後にですね、今日のゲストのエストニア e ガバナンスアカデミーが公開しておりますナショナルサイバーセキュリティインデックスということでご紹介いたします。これ画面でお見せしてますけれども、ウェブ上でですね、公開しているツールになっておりまして、こちらの方にですね、各国、ボランタリーに情報を入力をすることでですね、インデックスに追加されていくというようなものであります。目的としてはですね、になります。それで、後でこの詳細はですね、ヨップさんからご紹介があると思いますけれども、日本の順位についてはですね、37位ということになっています。ただちょっとここは括弧書きにしているのは理由がありまして、もともとこのインデックスですね、順位を出すために作られているものではなくてですね、各国が自国の強化ポイントを知る、またどう強化していいかというのをですね、他国の状況を参考にしてみると、そういったもののために作られているものだということでありますので、あまり順位、また特性上ですね、順位についてもかなり正確性を保証されるものではありませんので、括弧書きということにしております。ただ、見ていただくと分かりますようにですね、今までその上位にいたアメリカ、イギリス等々よりもですね、EU の国々が上位に来ているというような傾向があります。その背景をちょっと日本のスコアをもとに、簡単にご説明したいと思うんですけども、これがEGA のサイバーセキュリティインデックスの評価項目であります。で、特にこの黄色でハイライトしたところですね、これが今までの2つではですね、あまりよりもですね、非常にウェイトを置かれている部分です。デジタルサービスの保護、それからエッセンシャルサービスの保護、電子識別とトラストサービス。これらはですね、インターネットの上でですね、公的手続きですとか、民間の商取引、これを安心安全にですね、行うためには、国としてですね、整備をしておくべきものと考えられているものであります。こういったものをですね、非常に大きなウェイトで見ているというようなところが、一つ特徴でありますし、先ほどのような結果になっているということであります。詳細はちょっとご説明はしませんけれども、この左端にありますのは、このインデックスで見ている、例えば電子識別子とトラスターサービスの評価項目ですね。で、対して EU はですね、EIDAS という規則がありまして、この上でですね、電子商取引に関しますさまざまな規定、規則、これがEU 全体で定められています。で、対する日本としてはですね、残念ながらそこまでまだ制度として、準備を今進めているような状況にありまして、この差は先ほどのような結果になっているということであります。最後に終わりにですね、簡単にまとめですけれども、最初にマテックスを見せましたが、こちらにありますようにですね、だんだんと営利、それからサイバー紛争、戦争、こういった、あるいはテロといったような領域が多く発生するようになっている中でですね、途中で見ました IISS ですとか NSCI などのような国防、あるいはデジタルサービスの保護、これに視点をですね、広げつつあるというようなことであります。一方で日本の対応ですけれども、今年公表、策定されましたサイバーセキュリティ戦略の新しいバージョンでは、ご覧いただいてますようにですね、安全保障の観点ですとか、あるいは DX の進展と合わせたサイバーセキュリティの対策ということをですね、ご覧のような体制で進めていくということになっていますので、そういう意味では全体、ここまでご説明した流れに沿ってですね、日本としても体制が進んでいくと、そういう状況にあるというふうに理解をしております。それでは私のプレゼンテーションはこれで終わりたいと思います。ご清聴ありがとうございました。
Thank you, Nakano-san, for a nice comparison of 3 different indicators. That's very useful. And let's come back to this point and discuss later. And Ep, this is your turn. So over to you.
Thank you. Just a moment, I will share my slides. So now you should see my slides, and I will start. So thank you for being here and joining this webinar. So my name is Maaten, as said already, and I'm leading the cybersecurity area in the Estonian-based e-governance academy. And before going to my topic about cybersecurity, just a few words about our organization. So this organization was established almost 20 years ago, and the reason was that even then, Estonia as a country felt that we have some unique experience when developing and establishing digital government that we need to share with other countries. So our organization is dedicated to share experience of ours, but also nowadays more and more when we work in all around the world, we also share the experience of other countries as well. So we were established 2002, and we are not a governmental institution, and also we are not academic institution, even if the name is referring to this direction. But no, we mainly deal with trainings, consultation, and research in different areas. So these main fields of expertise are, of course, the smart governance. We have a long history when it comes to e-democracy and e-participation, how it can be done in an online world. Then a big part of our work is dedicated to how to bring the technology to the government processes, like securing the data exchange or secure authentication of users. And the fourth biggest area is this cybersecurity I'm representing here, that how governments should build up the systems and processes securely. And over the years, we really have provided trainings to thousands of people. The main target group is usually the government officials. And we have been involved in different trainings and longer and larger projects in over 130 countries all over the world in different continents nowadays. And we mainly do our work through the donors, international donors like World Bank or USAID or European Commission or other organizations that are interested to develop the digital transformation in the countries around the world. So that's the short introduction to our organization. But now I will go to the main topic, the cybersecurity, that why this is really important for us. And actually, the usual practice is that in the beginning, the countries focus on building and establishing digital ways of processes, IT solutions to help the organizations, but also solutions to help the citizens to get the e-services from government. And the security part is somehow invisible. It's always there, whatever IT system you build, but it's not really that important. And this cybersecurity or information security, these are like in parallel used terminology in that area. This comes important when we do see how dependent we are on some services, digital services, or when these systems are broke and are not functioning. So when we realize it's kind of nerve system, then we also realized that the security of this whole governmental digital organization should be secured. But as I said in the beginning, yes, this security is not an aim in itself. And just to give a simple example from our country's experience, in the 90s, we were starting to build all these new ways to communicate with the government, and the goals were very simple. We wanted to use digital channels to provide information, to be transparent, to enable electronic communication, to diminish the amount of papers and bureaucracy. So just simple aims. And but on the same time, the strategist said also that in very general manner that development of information society must not undermine people's sense of security, and protection of basic rights, personal data, and identity must be ensured. So in the beginning, it was very general and basic, but no further guidelines how to really do it. But later on, this is a picture of Estonia's development, I would say, until 2010. Yeah, just to bring an example from this beginning of this development and history of e-governance in Estonia. And on the upper part of this picture, the green labels are the main milestones the country achieved when it comes to digital government, like the first web page of the government and the special training programs to teach elderly people, and the state web portals. Or 2002, very important one, we introduced this ID card, which enables digitally to authenticate people. 2005, we introduced internet voting, that people can really vote over the internet in general elections, etc. And this lower part in blue labels shows the basic main steps when it comes to cybersecurity. And as you already noticed, that these blue labels come much later than the green ones. That the country starts to organize its structures and legal base and technical devices a bit later, let's say, when they realized how dependent they are from these digital solutions. And in our case, this security part also started even from the private sector. I would say that in the end of 90s, the private banks were introducing internet banking, and they realized they have to communicate with each other to diminish the risks. And then let's say 2004 was the main first milestones that the government said that following information security measures is compulsory for the government institutions. So it took a long time before these kind of requirements were really established. And the third, this is computer emergency response team, which should be an international contact point when it comes to cybersecurity incidents, but also a contact point and solver of incidents domestically. The third was established 2006, so much later than the other digital solutions were in place already. And then in 2007, we had some major cyber attacks coming outside the country. And these times they were really kind of simple attacks. They were called DDoS attacks. It's distributed denial service of attacks. So basically, the networks were blocked, or some computers were blocked outside. So the e-services weren't available, and it lasted like days. And after these major attacks, it somehow accelerated our government, and they understood we need more procedures and requirements and cooperation to protect our digital country. So we established the security strategy for cyber systems, and also dedicated governmental bodies were established. So that's the, let's say, very short history of Estonian government when it comes to cybersecurity. But as it's already says that security, information security cannot guaranteed only with technical devices, it needs people, it needs processes who will run these technical solutions. So security is a mix and of these all elements. What is also important to understand, what do we mean with the word cybersecurity or information security as it is known in different international standards? This is the main three components of this security are the confidentiality of data, integrity of data, and availability of data. And what it means, confidentiality means that people who have access to the data, only these people can access the data. So we protect access to the data. And here in these boxes, I also brought some examples. What are the tools, how to provide this confidentiality? And if the countries have a good and proper e-identification tool, it enables to separate what data the people see. So this is the tool we use to guarantee the confidentiality. Integrity means that the data is trustworthy, and it's the data what in correct manner, that let's say your name is written correctly and nobody is changing it without a notice. And to guarantee the integrity of data, a common tool to do it is the digital signature, that once somebody changes the data, then the signature is broken and you know this is not the right data anymore. And the last component, actually, it's very important as well. However, people tend to forget it, that the data should be available when it's needed. And so here the good tool in Estonian case, but also nowadays in many other countries, is this interoperability platform. We call it X-Road, which enables smoothly to share data between the organizations. So this is the purpose of information security. And in government level, but also in private organizations, to guarantee these three components, it really needs that kind of organizations establish a systematic approach, that they know what databases and information systems they manage. They have to make a kind of risk assessment, what is the security level they want to achieve. And based on this, they have to choose security measures. There are a lot of tools that help cover organizations here in this work, and usually we call them best practice or international standards. And for example, one of the most known information security standards family is the ISO 27000. So these standards give really the basis how to do this, how to develop the security inside the organization. That you first have to plan it, identify these objectives and objects. Then you manage the risks and do something. Then you check whether your measures are okay, and you monitor what is happening in your systems. And based on that checking part, you act, you improve your systems, you improve your processes. So this is a constant circle which actually shows very clearly that security is not a one-time project. Security is a process that should be managed every day in every organization, I would say, dealing with digital data. And these information security standards really help the organizations to combat with nowadays threats. And yeah, it's always confusing that how should an organization really find the right measures to protect themselves. And here's just an example of Estonia again, that these measures can be divided like preventive measures that organizations already prepare for the incidents, or reactive measures that if something happens, the organizations know what to do. And by organizations, I also mean like governments, that upper part of these countries, yeah, governments are guiding the countries. And here, this blue part shows like what our dedicated cybersecurity authority is doing, that they are monitoring what is happening in the networks and then providing alerts and information. That's like preventive. And reactive part is that if something is happening, somebody notifies there is a cyber incident, they have proper processes and tools to act. And also they have the knowledge what to do. This gray part shows like operators of essential services. We call them also critical service providers. I will talk about this definition a bit later. But also these organizations know and have prepared for the incidents. So this is just a picture to show what kind of activities can be done to be more secure. But this all, what I was talking in recent slides was like organizational level, let's say government institution, private institution. But when we talk about countries, then we need a coordinated response to the cybersecurity, that all these smaller stakeholders I was showing have the role here to guarantee the country's cybersecurity. And quite typically, when I look at the world, one of the first steps is to create the cybersecurity strategy of a country. And the strategy doesn't have to be really long and detailed. The purpose is to identify the main goals, to identify the main counterparts, and also maybe some suggestions of what kind of legal basis the country wants to have. So this is the role of the strategy. And based on Estonian example, usually countries develop this coordination structure. And it depends on the culture of the country, but quite often this cybersecurity is considered as the part of the national security. So for example, here in Estonian case, you see on the right side, there is a government security committee, which is advising the government in all kinds of security issues. But under the security committee, there is a cybersecurity council with high officials from the government, and they are like sub-institution of the security committee, and they collect all the kind of knowledge about the cybersecurity and risks and threats from all different governmental institutions. So the lower level here, you see a lot of ministries are involved. So they give the input to the Cybersecurity Council, how they are doing, how they are implementing the cybersecurity strategy and the tasks provided to them. And so the point of this picture is also to show that it's not possible that, let's say, one dedicated cybersecurity agency in a country can do everything what is needed to protect the country in the online world. So The educational system has to have something in place. The international relations have to deal with cyber problems nowadays. Cybercrime under Ministry of Justice in the Estonian case is involved. So there are different parts divided between the different ministries and sub-institutions of these ministries. Sorry. And now shortly about the concept of critical infrastructure. This is growing and growing, and this concept is helping also to create this coordinated response to the cyber threats. And what countries usually do, they define what sectors in the society are considered critical. It means critical that if these services are down, the society is really in trouble, let's say in simple words. And based on this OECD research, typically the first part of the sectors considered critical are very similar in every country. Like we cannot live today without the energy or communication and IT systems. We have to move and use transportation. Of course, health systems are really important for the society, as well as water and finance. So, and the lower part of this services list depends on the country. I can what is important in that country. I can give an example like in Netherlands, as you may know, their land is very low, so it depends on water dams. So the management of the water dams is considered as critical in Netherlands. Or in example, we depend a lot of this electronic ID system that not only government sector, but it's really universal. Also private companies use in an enormous amount this electronic ID. So we consider that this trust service providers are really critical for the country. So every country can choose like nuclear energy or whatever is considered critical. And after this criticality is defined, then we also, the countries define this critical information infrastructure. So before I was talking about critical infrastructure, but the critical information infrastructure, it means that how much this infrastructure is depending on ICT. That let's say in energy sector, they need the communication and IT tools to run these power plants or transmission systems. So they are really much depending on ICT. So these then this energy sector is considered as also critical information infrastructure. So and on the left side, you see that this information infrastructure is like an overlap of critical infrastructure and cybersecurity area. And why this is needed to define what is the next step usually is that the governments do provide guidelines like voluntary or even nowadays more and more requirements to these critical infrastructure service providers that say banks have to follow certain standards to protect their ICT systems, or energy or other private companies as well as governmental institutions. So it's a mix of private, public cooperation, let's say, and this concept of critical infrastructure is really about stakeholder involvement, that the government and private sector have to work together and to coordinate their efforts in the cybersecurity area, and they have to find common, let's say, tools, how to share information, how to gather. And the contacts of every organization should be available when something happens, then this situation can be solved. And so this is really about stakeholder involvement. And when talking shortly about the main other elements, what the countries are doing when they are establishing the strategy is more and more important is the area of awareness raising. And there are different target groups which should be reached out when it comes to cybersecurity. Of course, citizens on the streets, that they should know the basic rules, how to behave safely online. And but these campaigns or awareness raising efforts should be also targeted to some groups, like in schools. There could be a dedicated program for children when they learn, let's say, in e-environment, or also parents that they know what are the main risks if their children are online. But also older people, that they are being targeted in different way. So these campaigns to various groups, usually organized by government, are really, really important today. And also countries, of course, provide information for the smaller and the middle-sized enterprises to help them, and government employees. So, but this area should be constantly developing and taken care. Otherwise, it's really hard to be safe. And the last part, also growing worldwide and getting more attention, is this protection of personal data, that every company, every government institution should take care that personal data is also secure. I would say that personal data is data as others. So these security rules and standards are very good tools also to manage the personal data, because electronic data is whether it's personal or not, it should be managed and use certain tools to protect it. But anyway, countries do introduce new laws and rules concerning personal data. And now to the end, yes, my colleague here was presenting to you different ways how the countries can assess where they are and what are the next steps to do. And he was also mentioning this Global Cybersecurity Index of United Nations, ITU. And also there was a mention about this National Cybersecurity Index. And I will just shortly introduce this index, why eGovernance Academy is maintaining this and developing it. What we saw in our work with different countries, that the most common question is that, yes, I would like that my country would be more secure, but what should I do? What exactly? Tell me concrete steps. And as you already noticed, based on our presentations here, there are so many small parts which should be taken care, but really it's hard to find out the priorities. And this NCSI compared to this Global Cybersecurity Index of ITU is kind of open database. If you go to this website, but you see the URL on this upper part of that slide, you can click on countries, and then on the country page, you will see the basic data about every country. And here is like 12 areas in our index that you can then click on. Let's say you go to the country side and you click on the area, then you can find out whether this country has done something, let's say, in cybersecurity policy area, and you'll find like 4 indicators, like whether they have the strategy, whether they have a policy unit in government. So these simple steps that are common that the countries usually make, then you can identify through this index whether this country has done it or not. And so by this method, the country also gets the information, okay, we are missing this activity. Should we do it? So it's the way to find out the gaps and to consider whether this country needs it or not. And also this NCSI tool enables you to compare the countries. As you see on this upper right side, there is a compare button. You can choose several countries and then you get like a small table with indicators. There's 46 indicators at the moment. We are updating it next year, but at the moment 46 indicators. You can compare easily that what your neighbors have done or whatever country you choose to compare. So, and all these indicators have open evidence that's publicly available that we give, let's say, points to the country only then if they provide us evidence that the strategy is enacted. Okay, then there is a link to the strategy or the legal act. So what it enables to really get to the essence that if you want to see what like your neighbor is doing, then you also can go and read their strategy or read some other documents concerning critical infrastructure, or you can see whether they have cybersecurity exercises. So there must be evidence publicly available. And this principle, yes, it's very transparent, but the methodology makes us a bit different from ITU index because we collect only these parts that can be published. So when there is like security agencies dealing with something, but they are not allowed to publish their procedures or information, we cannot accept it here as a tool, as evidence, because it's not available publicly. So it means also this ranking part, even if we have it, that every country has a ranking, this is not the essence of that index. We are not doing it because of ranking, and this ranking might not be really a most correct one because, as I said, some materials may not be accepted here, and we cannot give points even if the country has done something, but it's confidential. But anyway, I encourage you to look at this, then you'll probably get the picture of all these elements, what the cybersecurity means for a country. And I also invite you to look at this video explaining in more detail how to use this website and how to collect the information about countries' cybersecurity. So that was my presentation here about the Estonian experience, about the main elements of cybersecurity on the country level and organization level, and about this National Cybersecurity Index. So thank you for listening, and please, if you have questions, go ahead.
Thank you for the excellent presentation. So let's gear up to discussion. And for audiences, it's time for you to raise questions, ask questions to two of the presenters today. So please feel free to go ahead. All right, in the meantime, I would like to ask some questions. So to Ep first, so your presentation was very comprehensive and easy to understand. And one question popped up in my mind is that, how do you deal with the national versus local level governments? My question is actually rooted in Japanese governmental systems. It's national government, which is responsible for national cybersecurity, but also the local governments who implement the IT systems for the local governmental services have to take care of their own cybersecurity as well. So coordination between national and the local governments are important, but not necessarily always successful, right? There's no established standard. Sometimes the city leads the innovation so that the national governments actually catch up. So, there are some imbalances between the two levels. In the case of Estonia, how do you deal with two level of the government systems?
Mm-hmm. Yes, very important topic. And so what is can be done is again that the government can introduce certain requirements that apply to the local level governments as well. And it can be done in different ways, that it can be more smooth, like you guide these local organizations, like provide guidelines, what to do when it comes to network security, or what to do when it comes to authentication of people. But it's more common, even I've seen that governments provide compulsory requirements, that they create a legal act which says that what the governments have to do. And there is also later on some kind of supervision system that the governmental level can control the local level. Are they following the guidelines or not? And I can bring our example, as I was mentioning in my presentation, that 2004, the government published and created the information security standard for Estonian public sector. So we took the international standard but modified it, and probably made it a little simpler. And so these guidelines were provided, and after that, this following of these guidelines were made compulsory. So, and that applies also to the local governments, that they need to really find the people. Usually first they start with IT people that have to do the security part. If there are bigger organizations, they appoint a dedicated security people to follow the guidelines and supervise them. So this is the system, how it can work also on local level. And the government can then supervise and make the audits, and so this is the way to do it. And when we talk about nowadays, it's even more complicated. Maybe you have heard this supply chain security that we have in mind, a lot of risks and threats that if we buy, let's say, a router or some kind of computers from outside the country, we don't know whether it has some backdoors from the vendor, or is it really safe. That now the new effort is to create this kind of certification level, that governments sometimes introduce dedicated offices which are really checking this hardware, let's say sometimes also software in it, and they give a certificate that, okay, this device is good and can be used by different governmental offices, including local level governmental institutions. So this is like a next level, that I would say, that to guarantee that the systems are safe.
Yes, thank you very much. And let me ask you one more question.
Sure.
So my second question relates to the organizational setting concerning the cybersecurity. If you look at the digital organizations, government organizations dedicated to digitalization, it includes chief digital officer, chief data officer, chief information officer, and nowadays chief information security officers. And it's a kind of progress we've been making in corporations and governmental entities as well. What's the case in Estonia? Do you? I understand you have chief digital, chief data officer. I know that chief. I think information officer.
Yes, CIO. Yes, yeah. But also there is no chief cybersecurity officer in that sense, but there is a special unit in the Ministry of Economic Affairs dealing with cybersecurity. So we can call this unit like a chief cybersecurity officer, let's say. But these roles are really, it seems confusing, but actually in every area you need somebody to be responsible. So it's the way to do it. And I can bring my example. I was working 10 years ago around in Estonian Information Systems Authority, which is kind of practical organizations dealing with all these cybersecurity issues, not the ministry level, but the sub-institution. And so we had trouble that the organizations inside the government, we had no contact person to talk to, that they didn't appoint a person who is dealing with cybersecurity issues as well. So what we did, we really prepared this kind of requirement, regulation, and we really pushed it through that there should be somebody who is responsible at least to the security area as well. Otherwise, this work is just not down, it's not done, and so nobody is responsible. So first you have to define the role and find the people, and then you slowly develop also the activities that it's somebody's duty to take care of the security as well.
I see. Am I correct to say Sim is still Chief Information Officer of Estonia? He's stepping out, right?
Yes, he is leaving, yes.
And the unit taking care of the cybersecurity is under
Sim, so yeah. Okay. Under this ministry, under Sim SICOT, let's say, area of work. So it's the same ministry, dealing with the digital development, but also with cybersecurity, let's say. But this coordination of crisis, I was showing the slide where we had this security committee and cybersecurity council. So it's like an upper part where there is really a crisis, like we had a few years ago, that the chips on our ID card were really worldwide, they were unsecure. It came out, so we had a major crisis situation. So it wasn't not enough anymore to solve this problem on the ministry level. We needed to reach up to the government level to find the money and make quick actions in all the areas of the country. So that's why we need also this upper part. Ministry in every day is leading the area, but sometimes we need also government to make the decisions, like in crisis situations.
I see. Perhaps one more question, if I may.
Yes, there is something also in the chat.
Yeah, I will take care of it, so wait for it.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. And so one question, maybe last one for you, relates to the public awareness of the importance of cybersecurity. And Estonia is also known for a Tiger Leap program, which is to provide educational opportunities to elementary school kids so that they will be internet native or digital native when they are grown up. They're already, freely taking care of any digital technology, whatever, right? And we in Japan talk about a lot of needs for civic engagement for digital transformation. This is not directly related to cybersecurity per se, but to transform society, civic engagement is always important foundation. And I think this extends to cybersecurity as well, right? So
sure.
You touched about the importance of awareness. So could you talk a little bit more about how you raise the awareness of people on the topic of cybersecurity?
Yes, I can give a good example from my own history. So I was dealing with elections and working in elections department. And then this new idea came that let's do online voting. It was a long time ago, so internet seemed secure and we were really keen on to develop in that area. And then this internet voting is possible only if you have this national ID card and you need the card reader. It's the physical device. And it was like 2003 and 2004, and nobody knew actually what is card reader. And then we needed to bring this knowledge to the people that what it is, how to get it. And there we got a lot of help from private sector, because the online, the banks realized that they can shift their banking to the internet, but they also wanted to be secure. So they also wanted the people to use this ID card and card readers. So we worked together like half a year to create the campaigns, first to get to know what it is, but also what the banks did. They bought a large amount of card readers from Asia, brought them to Estonia, and were like giving to every client in the bank. Of course, it was a certain amount of money, but not that big if you make a big tender. So just to show how simple elements bring this awareness, that you campaign, you provide some normal price, let's say, for the security devices. And also what Estonia has done is that to bring people to this online services. These online services are often free or cheaper than the same service on the paper. So this is also something what can be used, maybe even that when we talk about cybersecurity, that if you use more safe solution like this ID card and not password, then it's kind of cheaper or easier for you. So these are some simple examples, but yes, usually a lot of dedicated campaigns, websites, safe online, and also the basic education that what countries do is they create certain, let's say, programs for the different level of pupils. And this not only cybersecurity, but I would say also like digital life should be part of the education nowadays, that it will be taught also for all levels of pupils what to do and how to really use this online environment safely also. So this is part of this education. And the upper level, you also, what countries are doing is that you have dedicated programs for security in universities or other areas. That's, I'm sure, Japan is already having nowadays. But these are the elements, and not only government, as I was bringing this ID card example, that this synergy of private sector and government is probably the best, that then you can really get the wide area of target groups.
Thank you very much. It's a big implication for Japanese society as well. If the bank and the government work together to introduce cybersecurity or digital ID, whatever is necessary for the next generation of the society, I think it's much faster in terms of.
It is, sure. Yes, our experience shows also.
All right, thank you very much. And now let me switch on to Nakano-san for a question. And I will ask you one question in English first, and then in Japanese. So same question in two languages. You can answer whichever the language you want. All right. So thank you for presenting three different the ranking or methodologies related to cybersecurity. And I see strengths and weakness in each of the systems methodologies. Now, how do you recommend to use the three different methodologies? Do you recommend them to use in conjunction with others, or you pick one or two? What's your kind of feeling on the use of the three different methodologies? So Nakano-san, now in Japanese ね。3つ方法論というかランキングというかあって、で多分一長一短じゃないかなっていう気もしないでもないですね。で国連が作ってるっていうかなりなんていうのか正当性がありそうなものもあれば、ナショナルセキュリティにちょっと寄ったモデルもあったし、でそれとはまた別にオープンデータというか、ある程度使い勝手を意識したような EGA のモデルみたいなのもあったりもするようですけども、これ例えば企業、自治体でもいいんですけども、使う 場合って、3つ全部使わなきゃいけないんですかね。それともなんかこれとこれっていう組み合わせがいいのか、どんな使い方が考えられますでしょうかね。
Sorry, in Japanese. 使い方としてはですね、3つ並べて使っていくのかなという気がします。特に国の政策を決めていく場合においては、いわゆるその王道のサイバーセキュリティの対策も必要ですし、その国防という観点も大事だし、あるいはさっきあったそのインターネットを使った商取引の推進というのは非常に大事ですので、3つのツールっていうのはそれぞれにツールがあるので、これちゃんと3つとも見ていく必要があるんだろうなということだと思います。で、個人のその個別の企業とか自治体においてそれがどう使えるかとなってくると、多くの場合これ国の制度としてどうあるべきかっていうところを示しているので、なかなか難しいところはあるんだと思うんですけども、国が全体のその戦略を立てて、法律ですとかのフレームワークを作った上で実際に実行するのは、やっぱりその、自治体であり、企業でありということですので、そこのガイドラインに沿ってですね、実行するために全体を理解するという意味で、見ていくと、そんなような使い方になるのではないかなというふうに思います。
はい、ありがとうございます。やっぱり3つ見るってことなんですよね。僕もそうかなと思ってましたけど、見ないとやっぱり国全体しては分かんないでしょうしね。それを国が、なんて言うんでしょうね、法律とか、で、下に行くと今度は条例また起こっていくんでしょうけども、いう形で具体的なアクションに結びつけるということですかね。はい、ありがとうございます。ということで、今日はですね、エストニアウィーク第1夜目ということで、サイバーセキュリティを取り上げる形で進めましたけども、これからあと2日間続くという形で、今日これに終わりにしたいなというふうに思います。So we are now coming to the end of this webinar. Thank you for the participation contribution to this program. And I think we have provided a good, basic view of the cybersecurity, both from the international and Estonian view. And thank you for sharing your examples that are all insightful. And this is the first day of the 3-day Estonian week. So we are, I think, successful in opening up this 3-day special focus program. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, this concludes today's webinar. Thank you for the participation. はい、工藤さんどうぞ。
はい、ありがとうございます。Thank you very much for your viewing today's special webinar, Estonia Week. And I'd like to quickly go over the program for this week. So thank you for viewing today. And I believe that you will receive questionnaire after the event. And the programs of the webinars will be available on Twitter, Facebook, and the LinkedIn of Smart City Institute Japan. And also past videos can be viewed on YouTube channel. And as Tak mentioned, today was the first day of the Estonia week. And tomorrow and Thursday, we are going to have 2 more webinars. And Wednesday, we are going to have X-Road and Digital ID. And Thursday, we are going to have internet voting for our topics. And we also have 2 guest speakers from EGA, like today, for each day. And also Smart City Institute Japan, our members are growing, and now it's close to or about 480 with supporting member of 390, including over 200 local governments. And also we have global partners organizations, including e-Governance Academy today. So again, thank you very much for viewing today, and I hope to see you tomorrow and the day after tomorrow. Thank you and bye-bye.